everyone. My name's Tom. I'm the content director at the radio station. Hopefully I've met all of you before. If I haven't, then please come and say hi afterwards. This is Ned, aka
What's up?
Kilter.
How you guys going?
We're talking about the live performance element of electronic music. It's something which I think a lot of people maybe don't necessarily talk about too often. I think the assumption is you make music on a computer, you just have to press play to get it out.
On a computer.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is obviously not the case with you, Ned. And there's a bunch of stuff that we'll go through his live setup and how each individual piece of kit works. We'll give you a sort of a broad overview of how that works in the context of a tune as well, so you can kind of get a little bit more knowledge technically. But before we go into that, a couple of questions for you, Ned. Let's start with the obvious one. Why live instead of just pressing play?
I have like a background in playing musical instruments. I've been playing drums since year 2, and then throughout high school started learning piano. So that really helps, and that really helped with my songwriting too. Like being able to have musical background as a keys player and a bit of rhythm as a percussionist. I think I've like tried DJing a couple times, like at parties and stuff, and it's good fun, but it's a very different sort of performance, and not really like a sort of performance that I'd want to do myself as a Kilter show.
The live performance element, there are other people who do this extremely well, who play in the electronic space. What is it about them that makes them so good in your eyes?
I think like the best shows that I've seen recently are the shows that they're like good fun and the artist is clearly enjoying themselves, and I think that's almost the most important thing about your show. Like if you're on stage and you're not having a good time, then the audience isn't going to have a good time.
Let's talk about the behemoth behind us, and we'll go through each individual piece, as I said, in a second. But gun to your head, if you had to earmark one thing that is the most important piece of kit, what is it and why?
So, starting from this end, this is the easy end because these are all just live percussion instruments. So I've got some cymbals, rototoms, and a little snare that every time I fly seems to just sound worse and worse. This thing here is called a Roland SPD, and it's an electronic drum pad. Nord Electro keyboard. This is a Roland SB404 sampler, and that's a microKorg. And I think in terms of most important piece of gear, this one is the brains of the whole show, so most of the sounds are coming out of that. So without that, there is no show, really. But I think, like, for me, the most important part of the set is the SPD, because as a performance aspect, it's probably the most interesting. And as I was saying before, like, if you can make it interesting and have fun to perform, then that's kind of the most important thing. So I guess it wins. I play with no laptop, so my set is 100% hardware, which is just a personal choice in how my show is built over time. Like, at the very start, when I first started playing gigs, all I had was the 404 and the microKorg, so pretty much the two raised up here.
Let's talk a little bit about the first show, because you just mentioned these two items were pretty much the only thing on stage with you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's it. Just those two. I didn't even own one of those. I was borrowing it off a friend.
There you go. Tell us about that first show, the decision to finally take your music out. How did it all come about?
I think my first ever gig was at like a tiny little place in Sydney, and I got the call up because I'd been talking to the people that were running the party. They were like bloggers and they were into the stuff I was making. And I got called up really last minute because someone pulled out. And so I think I had like just 2 or 3 weeks to prepare. But at the time it was fine. Like it was just pretty chill. Like I don't think there's probably less people at my first gig than are here listening to me talk about this right now. So that always helps. But I mean, I was definitely nervous. My entire live show is pretty much on this. So it's good and bad. Like if I've got heaps of these, heaps of copies. So if something happens to this, it's fine. It's kind of fun, actually. But yeah, so you can put anything on this, and like ranging from like bass sounds like these. So that's for my Snakarakta remix, like the bass part in the bridge. In that track, sometimes when I'd intro it, I'd just like let those drums build for ages and like have a reverb pumping and kind of let that drop and then start the track like that. So it's like pretty versatile, and that's really why I love it. Like it's just a good fun. Like these things are cheap. They're like $300 or $400. They're battery powered, so you could like jam on the bus and stuff. But yeah, in the same way, this is a sampler, this is a sampler. So it comes with like a couple of like stock sounds, which as you expect are just stock soundy. But yeah, you just put whatever you want on it. So I've got anything from like bass hits stuff like that. Or you can do like entire lead lines, like my Hermitude remix, I play with this. So you can do melodic stuff, you can do bass stuff, and I also do like a fair bit of percussion too. It's a good example, like 1, 2, like.
It's a pretty expansive kit, and you guys have had a chance to kind of see how everything works at this stage. We'll grab a seat because it's the wonderful part of the evening where you guys get to ask questions. Any question of Ned, of his gear, of myself, but I doubt I'll have anything interesting to say.
What advice could you give to people that were looking to break into the same industry and as to what you're doing now?
Yeah.
In regards to like kind of just getting your music out there and kind of breaking that awkwardness and that fear of kind of showing people your art.
Yeah, right. I think when I first started making music, SoundCloud was not as big as it is now. Like, there was a lot of people using it, but really the only people using it were musicians as well. Like, for me, like, I'd just chuck up, like, a beat that I'd made that day. Like, I just wouldn't care. It was a good community. Like, there'd be a couple of people who I'd, like, hassle in their messages, being like, please listen. But I found, like, the best advice and the most useful advice would often come from like just peers. So like if you have like a couple other friends that also produce, like just bounce stuff off them rather than like trying to like get stuff into Diplo's inbox or something. Like for me, the most inspiring way to start writing is to like find a weird sound. And if that's like a like sample, like often I'll just like scroll through the just like endless amounts of drum sounds and stuff, just finding like something that makes me go like, oh, okay. And then from that, I might like then develop like a little rhythm or something. Or like maybe the sound is like a bit of sound design from a street, or like something that I've like heard some sort of melody in that I like then will cut and make a synth out of it.
Remixing, a big part of what you still do. Is that the, oh, I wish I'd wrote this song, I'm going to put my own spin on it style?
I think like sometimes it happens like that. Like sometimes I hear a track and I'm like, that's a track I'd love to do my own spin on. But to be honest, like most of the time it's like labels approaching you. Actually, like I get hit up a fair bit and I'm not into it. And if I'm not into it, I just don't do it. I try like not to listen to the track too many times before I start to remix it. I just like jump straight in, like listen to the parts and see like what jumps out as being interesting, and then yeah, go with that.
So like one of the things with electronic music is like when you're performing it, how do you manage to make it expressive and feel live even though you might be using samples? Like I remember you mentioning the like velocity sensitivity on the filters, but like how do you try and make it feel fresh every time?
I think like a lot of that comes down to like the actual performance aspect. So like while I can play drums and I can play keys, I'm not the world's greatest drummer or keys player, and I'll always make mistakes. Like Tim always gets me for this. I'll like strike a wrong chord and then he'll look at me with this look on his face like you're an idiot, and then we'll have a laugh about it and then we'll kind of just jam. Like
sort of embrace your imperfections a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's live music. Like it's never going to be 100%, and that's kind of why you, I guess, go to gigs, just to see something that's unique to that night.
We've got plenty of time to hang around and chat, and I'd love to meet some of you as well. Again, if you've got USBs, I will happily take them off your hands and use them to listen to your music and put movies on. And of course, you can talk to Ned and ask him any more in-depth questions as well. Before we get into that, obviously, please just put your hands together for Ned. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.